during the promotional tour, said that you had fallen in love with someone during the filming. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
With whom?
Jenny. I got very close to Jenny.
If you've landed here, then you're probably a big Jenny Shimizu fan, just like Angelina Jolie. But if you don't know who Jenny Shimizu is, this is your opportunity to not only learn why Angelina Jolie fell in love with her, but also you'll learn about the sheer magic that was Jenny Shimizu's modeling career. It was one of those rare occurrences when someone was in the right place at the right time. She looked like no one else, and she had zero expectations of what modeling could give her. Instead, working in fashion was a wild ride that she was happy to get on until either she got bored of it or the industry got tired of her. In this episode of the Charisse Report, we're going to look at how she got into modeling and became a woman who made so many others feel seen. In this video, I'm asking, what is it about Jenny? I've tried to source every interview and article, and I think I've managed to work out her allure. Let me tell you her story.
Hey, I'm Jenny Shimizu.
I knew I had to make a long-form video about Jenny Shimizu back when I created a TikTok about her. It was my first time of a video going viral. Overnight, I got 12,000 new followers on TikTok, thousands of comments, and over 36,000 people saved the video. That was all down to Jenny. I think the reason that video did so well is because Jenny made so many people feel seen. My comments were full of people who either knew Jenny from back in the day, and her appearing in the film Foxfire had been their gay or bi awakening. There were also comments from many Asian Americans saying they loved seeing someone who looked like them. And then there were just people in the comments that were happy to say that they were from the same part of California that Jenny was. There was so much pride in the comments on the video on Jenny that I just knew it was a matter of time before I had to dig deeper. I have reached out to Jenny a couple of times, but it's clear that she's someone that likes her privacy. It's really hard to get in touch with her, but I thought there's no harm in me trying to sew her story together so that we can all enjoy it. But before we get into Jenny's story, I think we need to look at the state of the fashion world back in the 90s when she first emerged. I feel like when the conversation around 90s models arises, it's kind of divided into two camps. There are the glamazons, the supermodels, the big hair, the curvy bodies, and that hyper feminine glam. I'm talking about the likes of Yasmin Gowrie, Naomi Campbell, or there was the extremely thin standard that came with heroin chic, where models like Kate Moss and Jaime King appeared in editorials and campaigns looking very young and vulnerable. But there was another much smaller army that consisted of the likes of my favorites, Omahyra Mota, Salvail, and of course, Jenny Shimizu. These were women that didn't fit into either of those camps. They didn't fit into the glamazon ideal, and they didn't fit into the waif ideal. At just 5'6" with a slight toned build, Jenny Shimizu looked more like a car mechanic than a fashion model, and that's because she was a car mechanic. She often refers to herself in articles as a gay Japanese mechanic with short hair and tattoos, and that's a description that hasn't been applied to any other model we've seen since. Before we get into Jenny's rise to fame, let's get into her origin story because there are quite a few of them. Born in San Jose in 1967, Jenny was raised in the farming town of Santa Maria by two third-generation Japanese Americans. She loved basketball, and her natural talent got her into California State University, where she studied for a year before leaving it behind to pursue her love of cars and bikes. She said that she'd always had a knack for fixing things when she was a child, and her obsession with cars grew from there, even seeing her open her own garage. But one thing I started noticing when I was researching Jenny was there are many versions of different stories, and some of them contain quite opposing views. For instance, I often read that she felt othered and lonely as a child, but then in other articles, I've read that she said she just felt like any normal child. In 2008, she spoke to Paul Nakayama for the now defunct Asian American magazine Audrey and said, "I didn't think of myself as Japanese or a girl or gay in my early life, and people always wonder about my obstacles of being different, but I always just thought that I was completely normal." Of course, the reason we have so many stories popping up about Jenny is that she has such a small digital footprint herself. Everything you find on Jenny is pretty much her fans sharing it or perhaps former journalists uploading articles. And those confusing areas don't just stop at how she grew up. They really carry through into her origin story. And I think I've read just about everything, and I've managed to narrow it down to 3 potential origin stories, 2 of which came from Jenny herself. First, there was a 1994 segment on entertainment TV. They said that she was plucked from obscurity. And in the video herself, Jenny said one day she was on her motorcycle outside of a club and a casting agent saw her. They took her picture, and just a week later, she was being photographed by Bruce Weber for Banana Republic. The second theory is taken from an interview Jenny did in 2014. So this is 20 years later for a now defunct magazine called Micro. And someone uploaded this on a website called Cargo Collective. In that article, Jenny said it all happened one night when she was invited to a house party. The party turned out to be in a house that the photographer Michel Comte was renting to celebrate his birthday. Jenny turned up with her friends and Michel just told them, have a good time, do whatever, run around. Meanwhile, he'd been photographing them for Vogue Italia. Nobody at the party had a clue that that's what Michel was doing, but Jenny herself said in an article she didn't feel like she was being taken advantage of. They just had a good time. The third theory, which featured in that Audrey article that I mentioned from 2008, is that Jenny was spotted by a talent scout outside of a gay club. Given that at least two of these stories, if not all three of them, were provided by Jenny herself, I'm guessing that she's just, over time, she's muddled up the details, and it doesn't surprise me because this is over 30 years ago. Either way, it doesn't really matter how she got started because when she did, she got very far, very fast. Given her height, her androgynous looks, even the fact that she was 24, which was considered quite old to be starting in modeling, Jenny wasn't the kind of model that people would have said was destined to be huge, or she would never be described as the girl next door. Instead, she had these kind of boyish looks, and more recently in an article she did for Allure magazine, she said she liked to refer to herself as handsome. She really stood out from the likes of Cindy Crawford and Claudia Schiffer. She didn't have big bouncy hair. She didn't have bombshell curves that caused her to sashay down the runway. Instead, she just had this very subtle, cool girl stance. And I think she made perfect sense for many of the fashion houses of the time that were really pushing that 90s minimalism. Her first big break came when she met one of the biggest American fashion designers, Calvin Klein. The minute he saw Jenny, he said, "You're coming back to New York with me." Calvin Klein had a really specific idea in mind for Jenny. He was bringing something new to the fragrance market, and it would go on to have a legendary impact, not just because it was one of the first mass-marketed unisex fragrances, but also the marketing around it was genius. That fragrance, of course, was CK1. Launched in 1994, the marketing around CK1 was created by the one and only photographer Steven Meisel. And it was completely groundbreaking at the time. It wasn't about fashion. It wasn't about even being a model. Instead, it had a kind of anti-fashion appeal to it. Very slouchy, very laid back, black and white. It felt very irreverent in a world that was quite obsessed with materialism and glamour. And at its peak, CK1 was selling around 20 bottles per minute. From then on, Jenny's working life saw her walking the runways for Jean-Paul Gaultier, Donna Karan, Yohji Yamamoto, and she had two career high points working with Italian fashion house Prada. Jenny was the first Asian model to walk for Prada and the first ethnic minority model to open a Prada show. She also began appearing in music videos like the song Delicate, which was released by an artist then known as Terence Trent D'Arby, who is now known as Sananda Maitreya, alongside Desiree. And she also got to know Madonna after appearing in the video for her single Rain. Jenny has since alluded to her time with Madonna several times. Back in 2014, she joked that she met this famous pop star who took a shine to her and said that whenever she was in New York, Jenny could stay at their apartment on Central Park West, a very fancy part of New York. More recently, in the Hulu series In Vogue the 90s, which is actually really good, by the way, Jenny said spending time with Madonna made her feel like a high-class hooker. Appearing in those music videos led to Jenny taking on more acting roles. But there was one role in particular that cemented Jenny in the minds of many, many teenage girls around the world when she appeared in the film Foxfire. In that film, Jenny played Goldie Goldman, and her co-star was Angelina Jolie. Foxfire was a teen drama about 5 friends. I'm not going to tell you the whole story here. I didn't watch Foxfire until my video went viral. I can see why it had an appeal. I wouldn't watch it again today personally, but I can definitely see why it had an appeal. I think Jenny would have been a beacon for so many after watching this film. And it wasn't just the audience that fell in love with her. As I said at the beginning, Angelina Jolie fell immediately in love with Jenny, and she said that if she hadn't been married to the actor Johnny Lee Miller at the time, you probably know him from Elementary, she would have married Jenny instead. One thing about Jenny is whatever you find in the interviews, she's always had this kind of pragmatic, very measured approach to her modeling career. It often feels like it was just a weird phase of her life. And in early footage, when she would talk about modeling, it seemed like she knew it was this thing that might not last forever. But while she was in it, she was going to take every opportunity that she could. In that article on Cargo Collective that I mentioned earlier, she was asked if she went into modeling hoping to make a difference to how queer people would be seen. And she said, "It was a very confusing time, honestly. I was at protests fighting for gay rights, and then I would be in the bathroom doing with some designers. These were incredible times. There was so much beauty, but so much sadness too." She added that she never really felt at home in the world of modeling, like she wasn't meant to be there. But despite her feeling that way at the time, when we look back now, there's no way we can deny that just by purely existing, Jenny made so many feel seen and perhaps even made them feel beautiful or handsome too. And she did this just by being herself. Could she change her height? No. Could she change her heritage? No. Could she change her physique? Probably, if she felt like it. And of course, the same could definitely be said of changing her features. But instead, Jenny was simply Jenny. She was in the right place at the right time. And while the 90s seems so far away, it's clear to me that Jenny's story is just as important, or if not more important now. This is a time when diversity and inclusion have gone from being a trend that brands were happy to invest in to something that no one seems to care about anymore. So for me, Jenny's impact on the world of fashion needs to be acknowledged. Because if Jenny did it, it means that we can still envision others who don't fit into the norm making it through. What's more, Jenny is someone who has always used whatever platform she has to speak out about prejudice and injustice. In her late teens, she found support in activism groups such as ACT UP. By the early 90s, she was taking part in peaceful protests. And in 2005, she married Rebecca Luz, yes, that Rebecca Luz, in a staged wedding ceremony for a documentary called Power Lesbians to make a stand about American laws that went against gay marriage. When Jenny decided to leave modeling behind in 2010, she went on to use what she had learned working as a model agent for Elite Model Management. But in 2017, she changed her career path completely. In an interview with Refinery29, she said that she was training to become a Los Angeles police officer. Jenny told writer Landon Peoples that she wanted to serve her community and make a positive impact, which of course is a complicated concept. In the article, she said that for her, becoming a police officer means treating every individual with respect, fairness, and without judgment. Education is a great destroyer of fear, and fear is what keeps our communities apart. Today, Jenny is happily married to Michelle Harper, someone described as a socialite and a creative and brand consultant. And apparently, Jenny still loves working on vintage cars. I add that she is happily married to Michelle Harper because when I posted my original TikTok, I was inundated with people wanting to marry Jenny and asking why it didn't work out with Angelina. Let me know if you know Jenny, and let me know in the comments what you'd like me to talk about next when it comes to the worlds of fashion, beauty, and entertainment. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and please do hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode of The Charisse Report. I'll see you next time.